In February of 2014, a 6-person Arctic research team disappeared near the Norwegian archipelago of Svalbard. At first, almost nobody outside the scientific community heard about it. There were no headlines, no breaking news coverage, no massive search operation broadcast across television. Just a small report about a weather station losing contact with a remote ice research outpost somewhere deep inside the Arctic Circle. The team had been studying unusual climate activity near an isolated mountain ridge nearly 140 kilometers from the nearest settlement. The station itself was small. Only a few connected structures surrounded by endless snow, sharp winds, and complete darkness for most of the winter season. According to official records, the researchers were expected to remain there for 12 weeks before returning to mainland Norway. They never came back. And for nearly 9 years, nobody truly understood what happened during their final days in the Arctic. But in the summer of 2023, melting ice revealed something investigators were never supposed to find. A damaged expedition camera buried beneath almost 2 meters of snow. The footage inside would reopen the entire case and reveal the final days of the missing team. The recovered recordings begin normally. At first, the footage feels almost peaceful. Researchers joking during equipment setup. Wind hitting the station walls. Coffee boiling inside the kitchen. Snowmobiles parked outside beneath weak Arctic sunlight. The team seemed experienced. None of them appeared nervous. The expedition leader, Elias Winter, had worked in polar environments for over 12 years. According to archived personnel files, he was known for remaining calm even in dangerous conditions. One recovered clip shows Elias laughing while explaining how quickly weather conditions could change in the Arctic. You stop respecting this place for 1 hour, and the ice reminds you who survives here. At the time, nobody watching the footage realized how important those words would become. The first strange incident happened on February 11th. One of the researchers, Mia Hallberg, reported seeing distant lights moving near the ridge north of the station. At first, the others assumed it was atmospheric reflection caused by ice crystals in the air. The Arctic is known for strange visual effects. Light bends differently in extreme cold. Nobody took the sighting seriously. But over the next several nights, more team members began noticing the lights. Always near the ridge. Always after midnight. And always during heavy snowfall. One recovered recording showed the lights faintly visible in the distance. 3 pale white shapes moving slowly through the storm. Not blinking. Not flickering. Moving. At first, the team attempted to explain them logically. Maybe another research crew. Maybe mining workers. Maybe military activity. But there was one problem. The area near the ridge had been abandoned for years. Nothing was supposed to be there. On February 14th, the footage becomes noticeably different. The atmosphere inside the station changes. People begin speaking more quietly. Some stop appearing on camera entirely. One clip shows Elias reviewing maps while another researcher repeatedly asks him the same question. Why are they getting closer? Elias does not answer. That same night, exterior microphones recorded something unusual outside the station. At first, investigators believed the sound was simply wind moving through ice formations. But audio specialists later isolated patterns within the noise. Rhythmic sounds. Almost like distant metal impacts echoing through the storm. One investigator described it as something between footsteps and machinery. The footage from February 16th was the last normal recording ever recovered. In the clip, the team gathers inside the kitchen during severe weather conditions. One researcher attempts to joke about the lights again. Nobody laughs. The camera briefly turns toward a window. And for less than 2 seconds, something appears outside. A pale shape standing motionless in the snowstorm. The image quality is terrible. Visibility is low. But whatever stood outside the station appeared unusually tall and completely still. Investigators later argued for years about what the figure actually was. Some claimed it was distortion caused by snow and low exposure. Others believed it was simply another member of the team outside. But according to station logs, everyone was accounted for inside the building at the time of recording. After that night, paranoia inside the station intensified rapidly. Several recordings show arguments between team members. Some wanted to leave immediately despite the storm risk. Others believed exhaustion and isolation were affecting their judgment. Then one of them disappeared. At 2:13 a.m. on February 17, researcher Daniel Krog left the station alone. The reason remains unknown. No footage shows him leaving. No final message was recorded. The only evidence comes from interior security cameras showing the main door opening briefly before alarms triggered from extreme cold entering the station. Daniel never returned. The next morning, Elias organized a search party despite worsening weather. The recovered footage from the search is difficult to watch. Visibility was almost zero. Snow moved sideways through the wind. Radio communication constantly failed. At one point, the camera captured footprints leading toward the ridge. Only one set. Daniel's. But according to expedition notes later recovered inside the station, the footprints suddenly stopped. Not faded. Stopped. As if the person walking had simply vanished into the storm. After returning from the failed search, the team became increasingly unstable. Several cameras were intentionally turned off. Conversations became fragmented. Some recordings contained hours of complete silence. One clip shows Mia sitting alone in the equipment room whispering something repeatedly. At first, investigators could not understand the audio. Later enhancement revealed the sentence clearly. "They're waiting out there. Nobody knows who she meant." On February 19, the station lost external communications completely. No satellite connection. No radio signal. Nothing. According to emergency backup logs, severe ice damage disabled several exterior systems. But investigators later discovered something disturbing. Some equipment failures appeared manual. As if someone inside the station had intentionally disconnected them. The final 24 hours remain the most disturbing part of the recovered footage. The storm outside intensified beyond anything previously recorded during the expedition. Snow buried half the exterior structures. Power failures became constant. Inside the station, the team looked exhausted. Nobody slept. Nobody spoke unless necessary. One recording shows Elias staring through a frost-covered window for nearly 4 full minutes without moving. Then quietly saying, "They know we can't leave now." No one responded. The final video file begins at 3:41 a.m. on February 21. Emergency red lighting fills the station corridors. Most of the cameras are no longer functioning. The person holding the expedition camera appears to be moving quickly through the building. Breathing heavily. Somewhere in the background, metal can be heard striking against something outside. Again. And again. And again. The camera briefly passes the kitchen. Tables overturned. Coffee spilled across the floor. One chair broken near the wall. Then the power completely fails. For several seconds, the screen goes black. Only wind can be heard. Then suddenly, someone begins pounding on the exterior station door. Not knocking. Pounding. Violently. One team member starts crying. Another repeatedly says, Don't open it. Then, for the first time in the entire expedition footage, a voice is heard outside. Muffled by wind. Almost impossible to understand. Investigators spent years enhancing the audio. Most agree only 3 words can be heard clearly. Let me in. The pounding continues. Louder each time. Then the camera falls sideways onto the floor. For several seconds, only boots moving through darkness are visible. And then Elias speaks for the final time. His voice is calm, but terrified. Don't go outside. The footage ends there. No more recordings were ever recovered. When rescue teams finally reached the station 11 days later, the entire outpost was empty. No bodies were found. No signs of violent struggle. No blood. No clear explanation. But investigators documented several details they could never fully explain. All 6 Arctic survival suits were still inside the station, meaning the team had not left prepared for the environment. One exterior door remained partially open despite freezing conditions. And strange marks surrounded parts of the station walls buried beneath snow and ice. Official reports described them only as repeated parallel impressions of unknown origin. The case was eventually closed. Authorities concluded the researchers likely died during severe weather after suffering psychological stress caused by isolation and Arctic conditions. But many investigators privately disagreed. Because according to recovered station records, the team continued logging the lights near the ridge even after Daniel disappeared. And the final entry written by Elias Winter only hours before the footage ended contained a sentence investigators never released publicly until years later. It simply read, "The lights are closer tonight." For nearly a decade, the story disappeared. Then in 2023, unusually rapid ice melt exposed a section of terrain nearly 3 kilometers north of the abandoned station. A survey team investigating the area reported discovering fresh footprints in the snow. The prints appeared human. But no active expeditions were operating anywhere nearby at the time. The footprints led toward the ridge. And stopped there.